Hi, everybody. My name's Liam Stapleton. I work with the LPC to help them deliver learning and development resources for contractors in Nottinghamshire.
Hi, I'm Mike Jones. I'm the Services Implementation Lead for Nottinghamshire LPC.
Welcome to the fourth video in our series that will help contractors prepare for and deliver the new pharmacy contraceptive service. After the introduction video, we provided two videos that will help contractors get their pharmacy and team ready to deliver the service. This video will focus on running the service effectively. There are some resources available as PDF files that accompany this video and that you'll find useful. If you haven't printed these already, pause the video and print them. There's an action plan on which you can take note of the actions that you need to undertake as you watch the video. So what do we intend to cover in this video? We'll talk about communicating with patients, how to make sure patients know about the service. We'll talk about communicating with local practices, ensuring an efficient flow of information. And we'll also talk about communicating with other pharmacies, ensuring clarity and service delivery locally.
Thanks, Liam. So yes, communication is vital to making this service work effectively. And it's how we need to ensure that our local communities know of this service as an option for the supply of their oral contraceptives. This service needs to be delivered in collaboration with other contraception services as part of the system. We'll not provide this service in isolation, but in partnership with other providers, for example, GPs and sexual health clinics. And finally, we also need to work with other local community pharmacies to ensure the service is being provided consistently for local patients. The Fuller Stocktaker report wrote about how primary care needs to be organised in the future. And it talks about working as teams of teams and this introduction of the idea of competitive collaboration. In other words, we will all succeed when, as individuals, we succeed.
So let's start with communicating with the public, our potential patients. How do we let people know that this is an option for their oral contraceptive supplies? The most successful way to encourage this will be to work with local GP practices. Based on the mutual benefit that this service will bring to patients, the practice and the pharmacy, they can be key to the success of the service in your pharmacy. Many practices have the ability to send text messages to targeted patients, and your local practice may be willing to do this. Even better, if they're willing to target patients who are due to order a repeat prescription for the oral contraception and send a text out every month to those patients. Speak with the repeat prescription team and explain the service. Encourage them to refer patients to the pharmacy service. And when we move to tier 2, where we'll be initiating treatment, make sure the care navigators in the practice know that pharmacy is an option for people who want to start oral contraception. Remember to give them information about how you want to engage people with the service, whether you want patients to ring to make an appointment, or whether you can offer a walk-in service, and if so, on what days and times will it be available? If more than one pharmacy is providing this service locally, it'll be best to work together to work with the GP practices.
And of course, there are a number of ways that you can market the service yourself. So, for example, add this service to the directory of services in your pharmacy. Update your NHS directory in your pharmacy. Perhaps put a discrete poster on your health promotion notice board. And there are resources available which include posters on a website that we will and that we posted on the LPC website. Another great way is to update your social media sites where your patients are following your pharmacy. Speaking to patients directly when you dispense a prescription for them to inform them that they can come straight to you for their next supply of oral contraceptive is, of course, a really powerful way of communicating the message. And perhaps identifying patients that are taking oral contraceptives when they have a prescription dispensed for something else and tell them at the same time. That is a useful technique. You can use a leaflet, you can use a business card, perhaps added to the prescription bag, but it is very successful when you speak to patients directly. Your patient medication system will be able to flag those patients to help you identify them when you're dispensing.
If you're near a college or university, you might already have links with whom you can share information about the service, as there'll probably be a larger population who will value the service in these areas. I think what's safe to say is that this service will not just happen. There is a potential demand for it, but you'll need to facilitate and encourage that demand.
Of course, communicating with your GP surgery is a key way of making sure that patients are directed to you. So it'll be important to agree with your GP practice or your practice manager how the service might operate locally, and to inform them, of course, that you are offering the service. It will be just as important to invest some time with the reception manager and the receptionist as well to skill them up, explaining the service, perhaps answering their questions, and giving them the confidence to recommend the service to the patients they're speaking to on a daily basis. Practices may also be happy to display posters that we've talked about earlier to inform their patients of this new service in your community pharmacy. Regular contact about the availability of the service with the GP surgery, especially when you know the service isn't going to be available because of holidays or sick leave, is important, because that will avoid patient disappointment and patients having to go back to the surgery for their supply. Regular contact with your GP will allow you to continue to develop the service clinically. Discussing referred patients and perhaps how they're being managed, if the GP thinks you could have done something different, for example, is part of a continuous improvement cycle, and we'd strongly encourage that. This is an important element of being part of the system and a member of the local primary care team.
It is important to keep the practice informed of how the service is working. You'll have agreed how referrals will be managed with practices. It's important to keep that dialogue going to make sure it's working well. Providing information to the practice to demonstrate how well the service is being used will be useful for service planning and will encourage the practice to refer more patients to the service rather than go through the contraceptive service in their practice. Being able to share anonymised information about patients from different practices using the service may also encourage practices that are referring fewer patients than average to increase their activity. It may be appropriate for this information to be aggregated across all the practices and pharmacies across a PCN to provide a more useful picture.
So I'm just picking up on the last point that Liam has made about communication between pharmacies. And the reason for that is this is another really important part of delivering this service consistently. I mentioned the fuller stock take earlier. That in that, it's clear that the future of primary care requires different groups of professionals to work together more closely to deliver great patient care. Primary care medical services will refer patients to primary care pharmacy services rather than specific pharmacies. It's vital that services are delivered consistently and are available consistently as well. One of the things that holds back the integration of community pharmacy is the lack of consistency of delivery of a service, and the service not being available when the regular pharmacist isn't available. The other thing to remember is you might be the only pharmacy offering this service in a locality. So regular communication between pharmacies will help all pharmacies deliver the service consistently across a geography and ensure that patients can be managed in community pharmacies rather than being referred back to the GP practice when perhaps the pharmacist is on holiday. Perhaps using an appointment system will go some way to managing absence of the pharmacist, but understanding where to refer a patient with an urgent need is just as important, as because signposting is part of the contract for the perceived quality of the service locally to patients and other healthcare professionals. So what are you going to do now? I'd suggest reviewing your action plan so far, which you've already started to complete. Add in any other action points that may have come out of this video, and remember to assign deadlines and owners for those tasks.
So our videos so far have been focused on setting up the service and the ongoing communication to make the service work. Our next video will focus on an effective consultation, consent and record keeping. Look out for more details on the LPC website, in our newsletters and on our social media pages for new videos being launched. Thanks very much for watching.